We are now recording.
Good evening, parents. This is Terry Cheshire. I'm principal of Park Place Middle School, and we would like to welcome you to the overview we're trying to give for our new sixth grade parents and any new parents to Park Place. The things I need to tell you to begin are this is being recorded, and at a later date we'll have this up where parents can access at a later time to look at it, so we'll have that available to you. The other thing we want to let you know is if you have questions, there's a Q&A button down at the very bottom. And at the very end of the webinar, when we're done doing the presentation, we'll try to get through as many of those questions as we possibly can and get them answered. For those of you that are asking questions about passwords, we're aware there is a problem with the new password, especially with new students. And our tech team's currently working on that, and hopefully we're going to have a solution to it soon. But we know there is a problem, and there are people working on it this time. So we'd like to welcome you to the webinar. And Ms. Hilson, would you move to the next slide, please? I'd like to introduce the administrators here at Park Place. And on the far left, the guy with all the gray and that young little man on his back, that's me. I'm Terry Cheshire. And I will be the sixth grade administrator this year. Normally, we try to follow up with the kids through their 3 years at Park Place. So next year, I'd go up to the 7th grade and the 8th grade. Mr. Garrison, the man by the lake there, and he is currently the 7th grade administrator, and he will be following up with the 7th graders next year. And on the far right's Miss Hilson. She's the brain power of our team, and she is currently going to be working with 8th grade students. Generally speaking, if you have a concern that's regarding 6th grade or 6th grade students, you'd start with me. There are some exceptions to when that'll happen, but it's always good to start with me and make that first phone call to me. If it's a 7th grade question, Mr. Garrison is the person to call, and 8th grade, obviously, Ms. Hilson. Generally, math and special education is the areas that I kind of focus in on. Mr. Garrison has social studies and language arts that he deals with, and Ms. Hilson all deals with science and a lot of the electives in there. So that kind of gives you a general overview of where we are. Go ahead, Ms. Hilson. We have 2 counselors at Park Place this year, and they work with students by alphabet. On the far left is Ms. Garcia. She works with students I through Z, last name beginning with I and going all the way through beginning with Z. And then we have Ms. Leal Zimmerman, and she is the counselor working A through H and our ELL students and any of our Spanish-speaking families. So those are our 2 counselors. Our office staff, these are extremely important ladies. They're ladies you'll want to get to know. On the far right is Jeanette Barr. She's the office manager. In the middle is Miss Avalos. She is office support. She also speaks Spanish. We'll be able to help you if you're a Spanish speaker. And then we have Miss Trina Eriks on the far left. Great ladies. They'll be as helpful as you need. Just give them a call. And if they don't have the answer, they'll know who to direct you to. Go ahead, Miss Hilson.
All right, that's me. So welcome to all of you parents. And if you're a 6th grade parent or a parent of a new student, and even if you have 8th grader or 7th grader, you are, as we start remotely, truly our co-teachers this fall. Hate to break it to you, it's not a true handoff yet, but I know many of you guys who drove through tonight, and thank you so much for waiting in the line, in the heat, to show your kid, get them ready for the school year. Some tips that we learned last spring when we went remote, and we were working on trying to work with students remotely and in a distance format, is a daily check-in by parents is just really super important. And all of you as parents probably do that anyway. And so a daily check-in around academics, listening to any successes and asking them what their success was during the day, identifying challenges that they might have had, and helping to work with them to kind of figure out how they can approach those challenges. Middle school is a great time in their lives to start. You don't want to, trust me, you're not totally hands-off, because in some ways it's even more hands-on, but it's really an opportunity for them to start gaining advocacy skills and trying to teach them strategies on how to do that. One of the things that we've done traditionally at Park Place is to hand out agendas in the fall. And this year we are not doing that. We are instead encouraging our staff and then our students to use Canvas as their management tool for their calendar and their activities. Really encouraging them to look at the Canvas calendar. Once you've logged in there, then students have logged in there, they can see all of their different courses. Their Zoom links for those courses ideally will also be there. I had a parent ask me that tonight. So that is also the goal. As well as the student handbook will be uploaded to Canvas, which outlines just the expectations around students' behavior and academics here at Park Place. Okay, I feel like I've been talking fast. I apologize. The MSD Quick Start Guide. So many of you have seen that. It is in a book format done by the district. It is awesome resource, and it's a great place to look at and start. If you, again, drove through tonight or have received any of our communications via email, there was a QR code that you could actually scan if you have that ability, and it takes you right to that. So let's say there's a challenge. Let's say your kiddo's like, I don't know what to do. Where am I going with this? Again, just trying to kind of back up and asking them, how can you identify what resources do they have available to them? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? Is it the calendar? Is it an announcement? There's lots of places where all of these resources are. And sometimes it just takes a deep breath on the part of student and parent to just say, we can do this together. We have built into our schedule, and if you've seen that, and you will, if you haven't, you will hear shortly, something called teacher access time. We called this office hours in the spring. We realized that some of us don't always know what an office hour means. So we are calling it the teacher access time. This is a time that staff have available during their day for students and parents or families, guardians, whoever is with them, to access their teacher. Different teachers will do this a little bit differently, whether it's a Zoom link to pop in, whether it's a phone call, whether it's email, all of those will be options for them. I know that when we say, sometimes it's not very definitive, and with that is because we're trying to build flexibility in mind for not only our students and families, but also for our staff in lots of different ways that teachers and students can connect. The third thing is all students have an email, and teaching them early on how to access that email, how to send an email directly to their teacher. Our teachers have the expectation to respond to student and family email within 24 hours, business days. I know that sometimes that isn't always the case, but that is always the goal. And then also, if that doesn't work, then a parent or guardian phone call or email to the teacher. Like I said, we do have those teacher access times built into the day, as well as many of our staff monitor their emails 24 hours, well, give or take a few, and even on weekends. But we do try to build that in so that you know when your teachers are going to be available to you. So those are some of the ways that parents can look for involvement. Another way is that something that's a little bit different than the spring. So if you were with us in the spring in any way in the Monroe School District, that attendance looked a little different. So the attendance this fall, we've received pretty clear guidance that we will be taking attendance. We take attendance through family access. Staff call that Skyward, but on the family access side, and attendance will be taken daily for the courses that they are supposed to take. So for example, Mondays, we will see periods 1, 2, and 3. So those are the periods in which attendance will be taken for measured by engagement during the day. There's lots of ways that we're going to count presence or engagement and learning. One is that if a student attends a live Zoom session, that they're there, they're present, and they're there. If they were active in Canvas on an assignment, teachers can monitor if students were active on an assignment in Canvas. That would count as being present. Let's say they completed an assignment and turned it into their teacher. That would count as attendance. If they weren't able to make the Zoom session for whatever reason in the morning and they attended teacher access time and was able to connect with their teacher in a way that was around their learning, that counts as attendance. If they've communicated with their teacher around work through email exchange or phone exchange, that would count. And possibly there's other ways that we haven't thought of that would count as engagement around the learning that we would count as attendance. If, for example, a student was unable to engage with the teacher from the hours of 8 to 3:30, which is the hours of our staff, and they came in at 6 o'clock at night and was able to complete an assignment. Staff will check in the morning if they need to adjust attendance. Great. If you as a parent know that your student will be absent due to sickness or illness or a family emergency or out of town, please call our attendance hotline, call our office, and report that to one of our office support staff, and they'll record that just like we would have in any other time. The last thing around parent involvement is we do have an awesome PTO that supports our staff and students here at Park Place. We have 3 members currently on the board. We're always looking for more. There's also, they do have an email address, and you can also follow them at Facebook. They have a Park Place Middle School Puma Print Parents. So we can get that information out to you at a later time as well. So just check our newsletters. As parents, we have newsletters that come out on Thursdays. So be looking for that. We look for lots of different ways to engage with you this fall. Our back to school bash day is one way that we've never done that before. So it was a new way to try and see families and connect with you and students as we start the school year in a funky time. So, alrighty, I think Mr. Garrison, or is this Mr. Cheshire? I guess it's up.
Christy, thank you. Christy, you mind open the schedule for me? And I'm going to echo a little bit more forcefully what Ms. Hilson said to you. Middle school is a time where parents really need to be involved with their kids, know who their friends are, what they're doing, where they're going, and who they're seeing. It's a time where students probably want you to back off a little bit, but it's not the time to back off. It's really the time to engage your student conversation. If they're going over to a friend's house, I'd say it's 100% appropriate for you to call ahead, make sure there's going to be a parent there, find questions about who's going to be there, what supervision is going to be there. If you have questions about school, let your student advocate for themselves. But when it reaches a point of frustration, you need to step in as a parent, and it's perfectly okay to write an email and try to get a hold of the teacher. The teacher is the best place to start, because a lot of times you're going to ask me questions, or the administrator the question, and we don't have the answers. We really don't even know where to start. So starting with the teacher and asking the question to the teacher is always the best place to start. If you get into that and you don't have the answers where you feel good about it, then give us a call, the administrator, the grade level administrator, and we'll be glad to help you out. Going into the schedule. In a traditional year, if we were in the building, brick and mortar, your students would have a 6-period day. Clearly, 6 periods in a day on a remote learning where they're on a computer is not going to be a workable situation for it. So what we have run is what we call a 3-period day and alternating days. So on Monday, Wednesdays, you're going to see there in the schedule that we start off the day at 8:30 with period 1, then we go to period 2, and we go to period 3. On Tuesday and Thursdays, we get the last 3 periods that we haven't hit. So that's period 4, 5, and 6 is coming up. So every other day, your student will be engaged with each of their periods for a 50-minute lesson. Those lessons generally, and I can't say 100%, will generally start off with a video. And the video will be under 10 minutes. And the video is to give the students an overview of the lesson and the skills they'll be working on that day. It's a great way to set the pace, to get the mindset of, okay, I understand what we're going to be doing. The other thing the video will do is, like all of us, we get in there and sometimes we think we understand what we're expected to do. And then when we really start applying it, we forget. So the video would always be available for students and their parents to go back and review and watch that again. So that's something that's really important for you to know. After the 3 periods each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if you look at Friday's schedule is a little bit different, and that's with intent. We want our students to hit all 6 periods on that day. Why? What we're asking our teachers to do is go back in and check in some way to assess the skills you taught that week. Do the students really understand those skills? With the remote learning, it's really important that students understand the concepts that were taught that week before we move on to new concepts the next week. So in those 30-minute periods, the teachers will be doing some kind of check. I can't say it's going to be a pencil paper test. It's probably not going to be a big assessment, but we have asked our teachers to check in on the skills that they taught during that week and make sure the students really have a grasp on what's going on. If the students don't, then we're going to have the teachers invite the students into the teacher access time, probably early next week on that. So that's the morning schedule on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays. If you look after periods 3 and 6, we have two different areas in there. One is called Puma time. One is independent readiness and organization. Puma time is a time where we make connections with kids. The remote learning is going to make it that much more challenging. So the teachers need to make those personal connections with their students, and they need to create a class environment where all kids feel safe and comfortable. That's one purpose of Puma time that we'll be doing on Monday and Wednesdays. Another purpose of Puma time is if students really need some extra help during the lesson that day, that they saw that there was some gaps, the teacher can do some support or additional support for the students. The other thing we use Puma time for is celebration and making connections. We've done questions in the past, and those questions are to stimulate conversation and get to know each other. So those are all things that Puma time can be used. On the Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's that independent readiness and organization. It could be that the students are reading and doing some independent reading. We found last spring that the students weren't reading as much as we liked. So the independent reading could be done there. It could also be the teachers are going in and teaching some organizational skills, how to use that calendar and Canvas, how to make sure you're tracking your assignments and get them in on time. So when you look at that Puma time and independent ready and organization, that's what it's there for us. Following that, we have what is called it'll be the lunch for the students. They'll have 30 minutes for them to work on, have their lunches, so that it's always going to be built in there. As soon as we come back from lunches, we have a program in the Monroe School District called iReady. iReady is an amazing program, and what it does is it goes in and gives the students an assessment in the areas of math and reading. It identifies where their strengths are. It also identifies where their gaps in learning are. Once they have that assessment, and we call it diagnostic, then the program automatically creates lessons to work on the skills where it's identified the students are weak. We will not be able to give that first diagnostic until October 5th. So that's a little bit of a delay. We understand that. Teachers could be providing a variety of lessons and activities that are coming from iReady and other sources to be used in that time. But starting on October 5th, once we get the diagnostic completed, we'll expect the students spend 30 minutes a day. On Monday and Wednesdays, it will be focusing in on the areas of math. And on Tuesday, Thursday, it'll be focusing on the areas of reading, where they work on those lessons that iReady says they really need to have skills built in. So that's going to be extremely important that the students get no less than 45 minutes per week in both reading and in math, but that's built in. The independent practice time, we have found that self-reliance and having perseverance is a skill that's really important for all middle school students to have. So on their periods in the morning, on Monday and Wednesdays, periods 1, 2, and 3, the teachers will be providing activities that they want their students to work on. We want a period of time where the students work independently, try to apply what they heard in class, and see if they truly understand it. I learn best by learning and find out where my mistakes are. And that independent practice is to make sure that I really fully understand what the teacher taught me during class. However, there comes a point where I've tried it, I don't get it, and frustration starts building up. We do not want frustration to go over the top where the students become so overwhelmed they give up. So the independent practice time comes right before teacher access time. So if the students are in there working on the lessons the students gave them during the morning and they become frustrated and they don't understand how to do it, that teacher access time is the perfect time for the students to reach out to their teachers. They can call, they can email and say, I need to talk to you about the following questions I have. So that's built in. We think that's going to be extremely valuable for our students to have. I think it's going to develop that resilience and perseverance where students see that they can work through things. We're going to encourage kids during the independent practice times to use the resources that are available to them. Can they look in the back of the book? Are there sample answers on odd or even answers? Can they go back into the book and look at the examples that were in the book? Has a teacher given them a website like Khan Academy where they can go back in and look at a lesson? Google's another resource where they can put in the skill, see if there's Google or on YouTube, there's something going into it, but we want those students to get the practice of, okay, I don't have the understanding. What are some things I can do instead of waiting for the teacher that I can do on my own to develop those skills? So that's an overview of our schedule that'll be happening each week. Again, in the mornings, we'll have 3 periods a day, Monday and Wednesday, 1, 2, and 3, Tuesday and Thursday, 4, 5, and 6. Friday is the check-in day where we check with all of our classes to make sure the students have an understanding of the skills that were taught that week. And again, the teachers will go in after that, identify if students really don't understand it. They might invite them to a mandatory teacher access time where teachers work with individuals or small groups of students. Mrs. Hilson, Mr. Garrison, did I leave anything out that you guys think is important to share?
No.
I don't think.
Okay, that's it with that slide then. Thank you.
Yeah, so good evening, Puma parents, and thank you so much for joining us this evening, after a long day. And, appreciate also those that were able to withstand the time, effort, and energy to get through the line this afternoon. It was great seeing the families that were able to be there. So the Puma Way is based on 3 things. It's based on pride, excellence, and character. And the Puma Way sets the tone for what we want here at Park Place. It sets the climate that we strive to have here at Park Place. And so, with pride, we want students to have, pride in their actions and pride in what they do, and to take pride in the work that they do, but not only the work that they do here at school. We want them to be able to learn to take pride in the work that they do elsewhere as well, whether it be at home or in a workplace when they eventually get there, or helping siblings, but to take pride in that. And it's based on their actions, and we all know that actions speak louder than words. So getting that kind of tone set with them. Excellence is always putting your best effort forward and teaching them that a job worth doing is worth doing well, and that they really always strive to do the very best they can, even if they're dealing with a difficult situation. And then the last piece, character. Character it's doing what's right consistently, regardless of who's watching or if anyone is watching. It's doing the right thing when it's easier to not do the right thing. It's doing the right thing when you have friends and maybe others, maybe they're not your friends, but they're telling you, no, do something else, do the other thing. So character is establishing that and finding out who you are, doing some soul searching and, being able to choose right, from wrong, and establishing that as a way you want to live. So all of that kind of wrapped together is the Puma Way that we try and strive for here at Park Place. And then we, from time to time, will recognize students. Last year when we were all together, we were recognizing students once a month for following the Puma Way. And I know that that's something that we will try and do with our distance learning, um, you know, coming up this year. The other thing that I'd like to talk about are the web activities. And web is an acronym for where everyone belongs. And if you have a student that is a high school student, it's very similar to the Link Crew at the high school. So it's a way where we have 8th grade leaders team up and take over a smaller group of 6th graders. And they're assigned to those 6th graders, and the 6th graders get to learn and understand and know a little bit about Park Place, become familiar with Park Place through the eyes and actions of this one 8th grader. And if the 6th graders have questions or concerns or problems throughout the year, that 8th grader is always someone that they can go to ask questions, get some advice, and find out what's going on. We also try and build in throughout the school year some activities where those 8th graders will be able to take the 6th graders in their group and have an activity or a get together or some sort of a social activity. And this might all be online, but hopefully we will be physically back together sooner rather than later this school year. Ms. Hilson, can you move to the next slide, please? Now, with our distance learning, one of the ways that our students can follow the Puma way is by following these Puma Zoom expectations. So in looking at this, and starting tomorrow with the first day of Zoom classes and getting together there, we would ask all Pumas, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, to be on time. Wake up early. Make sure that you're up early enough so that you can kind of get yourself situated, maybe have some breakfast, and then be able to log on a few minutes before class starts. Have the materials with you that you need to make sure that you're ready for class. Wear appropriate clothing, and make sure that your device is always ready. It's charged up or plugged in, but it's ready to go. We encourage students to find a quiet place to focus and make sure that there's nothing goofy going on around you or that maybe is behind you that could be distracting. And when you're in the lesson, raise your hand, use school appropriate language, encourage your fellow students to participate and be involved. Sometimes you won't be able to ask a question verbally, so that's a great opportunity to type in questions in the chat box and to stay focused on the topic of the lesson. And the lesson time is, there's usually an instructional video, and then there's opportunity for questions and exchanging. And then before you know it, the class is over. So to really be involved during that class time, be attentive and be an active participant, and greet your teachers and your teacher and classmates, and use nonverbal clues like thumbs up that you will have on the Zoom, or a nod or a hand raised if you do have a question and there's an opportunity there. And then when you're not talking to the teacher or in a small group session, but the teacher is talking or a classmate is talking, to please mute yourself in that left corner there. So doing all of that collectively is a great way to follow the Puma way while you're doing distance learning. Thank you.
All right. So one of the things that I'm hoping that you guys will learn as new parents to Park Place. And maybe you're not a new parent to Park Place, you're just a parent of a sixth grader who's new. But both, I mean, Mr. Cheshire, Mr. Garrison, and I are very firm believers in please getting in touch and contacting us if there's questions or concerns. You'll hear Mr. Cheshire probably at some point over the school year say that Facebook is not a great problem solver. And we really truly are. We work hard to partner with our parents to all in the best interest of your son or daughter. And we've all been doing this gig for unfortunately kind of a long, or fortunately for us, I guess we've been blessed to do this career for a long time, and we truly love what we do. And a lot of that really just comes to getting to know your kids, and we need you to help us get to know your students better. Mr. Cheshire, I mentioned earlier that if you have a concern about something that's happening in class, please reach out to the first contact should always be that teacher, please, and find out what's happening. If the concern's not addressed, then you can contact the grade level administrator. Again, I'm the 8th grade administrator. Mr. Garrison's the 7th grade administrator. And Mr. Cheshire is the 6th grade administrator, so that we can problem solve that together. And that's how we like to do. That's part of our Puma way as well. If there's student concerns, counselors will be into classrooms to talk about that, but we do have student concern forms. There's Safe Schools, student alerts through the Monroe School District website that you can fill out if there's a concern about a student or your student has a concern about a student. And also you can reach out to the appropriate counselors by Alpha. One of the things you know, I know that the next 3 days will be probably pretty hectic. And I know there's concerns about getting logged on if you're a new student, especially to the Monroe School District. Student Services are working very hard to get that to happen. And maybe that your student can't access the Zoom classes tomorrow. Please know that we understand all of that, and just let us know what's happening. We'll get your kiddo online and get your kiddo with us. That's one of the things that we're really working hard this week, is to just get kids logged into their classes and connecting with their peers and staff. So those are some things to think about. If your student, and I might have looked at the question really quick, but one of the things I wanted to add to this in terms of just problem solving, if your student has a 504 or an IEP, or even an advanced student that's coming in, and you feel you have concerns about the schedule or what they're accessing, any scheduling concerns, or let's say you have a 6th grader and all of a sudden they've got an 8th grade science class, for example, please reach out to their counselor. Our counselors are amazing at what they do, and looking through that and helping to navigate that with you is what they're really good at. So if there's concerns about schedules in that way, or what they have. So with that in mind, we'll move to the question and answer part. And Mr. Cheshire, I think you're going to take the lead on that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty.
I am going to try to read through the questions and pick on the right administrator that's best to answer those questions for you. So bear with me. I'm just trying to get the questions up here.
Can I interject?
Sure.
I was just going to interject something, Mr. Sorry about that. Parents, if you haven't already put on, or at some point when you have, when the logins are working, but one app, 2 apps that are really amazing for parents to use is the Family Access app. And with the Family Access app, you can submit absences. You can, if we were in normal times, you could check food account balances. You can check grades. You can push a button to email teachers. As a parent myself, I've used that app a million times. It doesn't give you the full stuff that a logging in on the computer does, but it is really handy. The other one is you can download the Canvas app if you have that ability on your phones. And that will also, it gives you limited access to some things in Canvas, but it can be a really helpful tool. And teachers will work with you on how to get you set up on that. So those are just 2 things to think about. So sorry there, sir, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just thinking about that piece.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Hilson. Questions. One, the primary question seems to come up a lot if the password's not working for it. like Ms. Hilson said, the folks in our IT department are working feverishly right now to get that solved. What I can do is I've seen the names of a couple families that I've gone into family access and I can see the schedule. So if it is not resolved by tomorrow, you can call and the administrator or somebody should be able to look at the schedule and tell you what classes. Without the password though, I am not sure you're going to be able to log into the Zoom. So while we might be able to help you identify the classes, if the password is not resolved, I'm not sure they can log into classes. Ms. Hilson, do you have more information about that? Am I accurate?
Yeah, they would need to be able to be logged into their account. So they can't log into the account without the password. It's kind of a tricky thing.
But should be able to tell you in most cases what your student's schedule is. Somebody asked if we're all muted. Yes, what we're doing is all the questions we're answering right now happen in that Q&A section. So yes, everybody is muted right now. How do you see the schedule without logging in info? Like I just said, without that password through family access, you're not going to be able to see it. The only way we can help you with the schedule is for one of us to do that for you and be able to access that. Another question, how do we change our child's math class to a higher level? What I would suggest you do is start with trying to contact the student's counselor. Please understand that tomorrow counselors are going to have a lot of students that we're trying to get registered, so they might not get you right away. But start with your student's counselor, ask the question if the math placement's appropriate, and they will get back to you and give you that answer as quickly as they can. Let me see. Again, the more questions about the family access, I think we've answered that one. And a question is, if the student's not able to log in to a Zoom lesson, what should they do? Joel, do you want to take that one?
Certainly. So if they're not able to log in, all of our teachers are putting together like a 6 to 8 minute instructional video that will be able to be seen at any time after that. So it could be in the evening, it could be the next day, where you can go in and see the instructional video and then follow through with whatever expectations there might be in regards to an assignment.
Christine, the next question is about advanced classes. Do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest was what I was kind of talking about earlier is that, in the 6th grade, students who are designated high cap are clustered together in their language arts classes so that teachers will differentiate that instruction for them. Math might be a different placement, and again, that would be a question for their counselor on an individual basis. I think if you have a question about your student, whether they're, regardless of their learning abilities, is that you contact their counselor first if there's concerns about, what's happening. If you're asking the question about, do we have designated honors classes at the grade levels, we do not. They are clustered together in classes in their language arts classroom, and then teachers are differentiating their instruction. One of the great things about remote learning that we were finding in the spring is the ability to differentiate and to scaffold and provide choice for students drastically goes up in this environment. So we were seeing really great success with that.
The next question is asked, how will students know the format individual teachers are using during teacher access time? And I'm not sure I fully understand that question, but what I would do is I expect that all teachers will give you a contact number to reach out to them where you can make contact. The other thing you can always do is email the teacher and express that you're struggling with some part of the lesson, you'd like to talk to them, the teacher can respond to that. A third option is the teacher may be able to send out a Zoom invite where then they can meet with the individual student and kind of go over in Zoom with the response and answer the question there. So hopefully I understand what is meant by format. I'm assuming that's what the case, and that's how you would be able to do that in there. Joel, the next question is about textbooks, when they'll be available. Would you take that one, please?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so it's going to take, we want to give probably about a week for all the schedules to kind of settle out as new kids are enrolling and some kids are switching classes and things are kind of going back and forth. Once that takes place, then, depending upon the class, some classes, in fact, a lot of our classes have an online text program so that there isn't a hard copy of a text because everything is accessed online. But there are a few classes that do have textbooks, and the teachers will let the students know in those respective classes about textbooks, or maybe we have an online program, but you still need a textbook. Okay, that's fine. So right now we are kind of gearing up for a week from tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the 16th of September. And from 3:30 to 6:30 that afternoon, evening, we will be distributing materials and supplies, whether it be art supplies, band instruments, something for choir, and workbooks and textbooks if needed. But we're giving ourselves a week there just for things to get kind of settled out before we do that. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Joel. Christy, do you want to take the start of school? There's a question about when the classes start.
Let me look at what is the question exactly, Mr. Cheshire?
They've seen a middle school schedule that starts 7:50. Sixth graders start at 8:30, correct?
Yes. So I'm curious about that because as I was coming into my office, I had a parent tell me that that Family Access is showing classes start at 7:50, which would have been our old schedule. I don't have any information on that. I'm not sure if our Family Access was not updated, Mr. Cheshire, to reflect the new time. But students start at 8:30. So please utilize the schedule that we've communicated on the Monroe School District website that we have sent out in our communications through our Puma prints, as well as email, as well as what was handed out tonight. So first period will start tomorrow at 8:30. Second period is 9:30, and third period is 10:30. And we'll run that schedule, the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday schedule has been published. And that what we'll need to do, Mr. Cheshire, is look in tomorrow to getting that Family Access corrected. Somebody asked about work. I think I saw something on one of the questions. And yeah, we're really looking at starting more content-based learning on Monday. So that gives us 3 days to get kids in, show them the resources, communicate the schedule. And quite frankly, parents, we're all going to be exhausted come Friday afternoon. So that requires a lot of brain work just to figure out how to access and get stuff in there. So that's our main goal this week, is to get to know your students, to get to know their teachers, to get to know the schedule, and to be able to access. And I think somebody also asked the question about, just how do we communicate? And I guess, our staff, just to shout out to our staff have been working for weeks to try and bring clarity to instruction and putting that up on Canvas. And so that's one of those resources, again, that if a student has a question, is guiding your student back to the Canvas page and saying, gosh, did your teacher put out an announcement? Is there something in their module? Is there something in the syllabus? So all of those ways, and teaching the students how to get back in there and access those resources. So I'm not sure I answered the question fully, but that is something I wrote down when I came in here, that I heard Family Access was saying that we start at 7:50, which is not good. So,
Christian, the next question is about Family Access app for iPhones. That's more your expertise.
Yep, there's an app for that. There is an app for that, and it's great. So
Can I help answer that question?
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah. So, hey guys, just so you know, for those who are wondering you know, you hear us talking about family access, and that's what we do in a school district. We refer to something by a certain name, and that's all we refer to it as. But just so you guys know, if you're looking in the Google Play Store or Apple App Store, the name of the app you're looking for is called Skyward Mobile Access, is the name of the app. Again, Skyward Mobile Access.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welton. The next question is about a family that has students that have two last names. Would there be an advantage to having the same counselor? The reason we have the counselors broken out the way we do by alphabet is trying to do balance where one counselor doesn't have more students than the others. At this point, I would say there's probably not an advantage of having the same counselor because they are 5 feet apart. And if there's ever a question, all they have to do is step out their door and turn their head, and they're going to be able to talk to the other counselor. So at this point, I would not see the advantage of having the students having the same counselor. But if you find down the road that there's an issue there, you certainly can talk to the counselors and see if there's a way that you can move the students so they have the same counselor on that. But at this point, both of our counselors are excellent. They are in the offices right next door to each other. So I don't think there's really a advantage on that. The next question, Joel, I'm going to send to you. Will there be any work this week? Do you see that question?
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, it's a good question. You know, it's a this is a different animal in what we're dealing with this year, and this is not anything that we have ever really experienced before. And so for these first 3 days, we want to really focus on making connections. I can't imagine, you know, being a teacher with 30 students and they don't know you and you don't know them, and yet you need to start establishing a relationship with them via a computer and via Zoom. So, you know, we're really on these first few days, we really want to be focusing on, you know, making some connections, building some relationships, getting students familiar with operating with Zoom and also with Canvas as well, and teaching them some of the nuances and idiosyncrasies that can happen with, you know, with various programs, getting them familiar with that, all the while, you know, getting, you know, more students are enrolling and making sure everyone gets on the same page, logged in, and having that all in place before we really start focusing on academic work. So I don't want to say that there won't be any this week or these first few days, but I know that the emphasis is going to be on building relationships and making connections and understanding the technology we use in order to communicate, teach, and learn. So that's where we're at. But it's a good question.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison. I want to emphasize, while there might not be emphasis on the academic assignments, and Mr. Garrison alluded to this, that it's still important that students are engaged in those lessons. Developing that understanding who your teacher is, feeling comfortable with them is extremely important. So even though there might not be any academic work, I think the work, and you're really setting the foundation for a good school year. So I would encourage that the students be involved in those as much as they possibly can. Trying to see if we have any more questions. Will there be work that week? Got that. How will attendance be counted for the next couple of weeks? Ms. Hilson kind of talked about that a little bit. Are the students present in the Zoom meetings? Are the students making contact with the teacher in some other way during teacher access time? Are the students engaged in the evening by submitting work? Just a variety of ways that we have available to us. Again, if a student's not able to be in the Zoom lesson, which is extremely important, if they can, they should be there. But if they engage in the learning some other way in the evening, we've asked our teachers to go back in and look at their Canvas accounts to see if they've engaged in the evening. And if that's true and the student has engaged, they will still be counted as present.
Yeah, and Terry, the question also was hinting at, I think also that if they can't log in the next couple days. So if you can't log in, we would ask that if you could just email your, Mr. Cheshire, for example, if it's a 6th grade parent, and say we are here, we want to attend, we are working on attending, we just can't, and that lets us know that you're there. So we do appreciate just sending, well, I think we had the name of the person that wrote that, so we can write down at least that. I'm not sure what the last name, but or there's also one of the office support staff up front. You can always call in and just say, please mark us as here. We're working on trying to get connected and logged in. So that would be helpful. So thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's a great question for that.
Another question kind of falls, where do we find the counselor, student's counselor? I think it was A through I, Christy for Miss Leal, Spanish speaking EL students, and H through Z is for Miss Garcia. Ultimately, if you can't remember, which I really struggle to remember that, even working with it every day, if you call the main office line and tell the secretary what your student's last name begins with, the secretary will be able to get you there and get it available for you. That is it for all the questions. I want to close with a couple of things. First, Mr. Welton is on here. He is a person that's been extremely valuable to us. None of us have ever done a webinar before. And I'd like to recognize and thank Mr. Welton for being here tonight and helping us run this webinar. So thank you, Keith, for doing that. The next thing, we are planning to run a webinar once a month. Same kind of general format, but the difference will be if you have specific questions that you'd like us to respond to during the webinar, if you would email those questions to any of the administrators and say at your next webinar, would you please answer the following question? We'll do the best we can to get that information to you so we can get it in a concise way. We also want to make sure that we're being responsive to the needs that you have. So again, if you have suggestions how we could do the webinars better, make them more meaningful to you, please send us that information. We're happy to do it. The last thing I'd like to close with, and Christy and Joel both alluded to this, if you have concerns or questions, make sure you contact one of us, or contact the teacher, contact the counselor, contact one of us. There is no question that we're going to find inappropriate. So if you have a question, you go, I really don't know who to talk to, I don't feel good about this, please reach out to somebody. What is really hard for me is a couple weeks, a couple months down the road, we hear that a parent had this concern and they were just not comfortable asking the question. There is probably nothing you can ask that we haven't heard, and we're more than willing to take those phone calls. Like Christy said, Facebook is not a great problem-solving place for me. I am much more comfortable having somebody give me a call, ask them the question where I can explain it as clearly as I can in a phone call. I generally, and I think Joel and Christy do the same thing, if we get a phone call today, we make every possible effort to make the phone call back to the parent before we leave in the evening. So please feel comfortable asking those questions. Again, if it's a teacher-directed question, it's best to start with the teacher because they'll have the information. It'll just save us from having to say, I don't have that answer. Have you talked to the teacher? I'd encourage you to talk to the teacher. So please start with them. I want to thank you all for taking the time this evening to join us in the webinar. We really hope this webinar was helpful. We're in this together. We're looking forward to the school year. We're going to do our best to make this the best school year possible for your students. Have a great evening, and thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, stopping the recording.